Hello everyone, I'm Wendell Jones and welcome to this edition of the program. The platform on this program, we examine national issues, and all over our country people are talking about the state of affairs of our country, whether it's in politics or whether it's the economy or whether we're talking about medical care in our country. And on our program today, we're going to see if we can talk about all of these things with a abled guest on our program, the Deputy Chairman of the Free National Movement, Dr. Duane Sands, has been very vocal on a number of issues, and we thought that he is quite capable of answering many questions, be they political, medical, or even economic. Dr. Sands, welcome to the program.
It's been a long time, Mr. Jones. Thank you so much for inviting me back. Let's hope I can answer some of these questions that you put to me.
Well, Dr. Sands, on a Saturday morning, I'm tuned into Love 97 to hear the information that you have out of a medical nature. And Max and Kirk, they keep us interested in what is happening in the medical field when they telephone you. So today I figure let's talk a little politics.
But before we do that,
yes.
I just want to say thank you, because I think that your station provides an invaluable service that allows us to get out the word about healthy lifestyles and certain problems. And whenever there's an opportunity to provide information to people, it is well worth it. So thank you very much.
Thank you too. And so I figured today let's deal with things happening in politics in the Bahamas, because it's on the lips of a whole lot of people. Wherever you go, people are talking about the state of the country. And for starters, the mood of the country politically, what is it?
I think pregnant is probably the word that comes to mind. If you are a student of history and you look at what has happened in the Bahamas, at least in the post-colonial years, we can put our fingers on what happened in the late 50s and 60s. We then look at what happened in the early 90s, and I think we're about to watch another revolution in Bahamian politics. Now, some may say that's hyperbole, some may say that's stretching it a bit, but if you listen to what is being said and you put your finger on the pulse, right now there is a level of murmuring and discomfort that you can feel. Many Bahamians across the political divide are unhappy with the state of affairs in their country. And I think it goes beyond yellow, red, and green. I think it has to do with people that feel that the Bahamas that they unbelievably committed to is not living up to its potential. And so when they look at why that is, they turn to the political class, they turn to the political grouping, and in particular the members of parliament, and they say, hey, what is going on here? Mm-hmm. You take that particular mood, and then you look particularly at the Prime Minister, and he has been found wanting. I think it is very clear that certainly the Perry Christie of 2012 and beyond has been less capable, less disciplined, less committed to his job than the Perry Christie of 2002 to 2007. And he didn't do such a good job then. So having claimed to be a reformed sinner, as it were, to come back now with platitudes and promises to say to the Bahamian people, I believe in you, that I believe in young people, that this is the Bahamas for Bahamians, that we're going to do all these things for crime and the economy and mortgages, etc. And people now realize that it's all a load of crock.
You know, there would be those who say that his intentions are pure and he wants to do more, but he simply cannot do more because the resources are not there to do more. And the Progressive Liberal Party has blamed the former government for its inability to get the resources to do the kind of things they want to do. For instance, they said the credit card was maxed out. The country overborrowed, deficits running extremely high. The IMF on the case of the government, all of the international agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, telling the government, well, you have to make some adjustments, you have to watch your expenditure and all of these things. And so Mr. Christie's argument is, and the PLP's argument is, yes, we want to do more, and there are a whole lot of things that should be done, but we simply do not have the resources because of what was left in place.
I'm sorry, but I don't think the Bahamian people want to buy that or will buy that at all. Because the Bahamian people are holding this administration to its own promises. And these promises were made knowing what the fiscal state of affairs were at every step along the way. Furthermore, if you talk about a shock to the system, there's no question that in 2008, 2009, the greatest single shock to the world's economy took place under the previous administration. So for this administration to now claim, even 2.5 years later, that it's because of those guys that we're unable to do not what we want to do, but what we promised we would do, then I think that you don't get a pass for that. And at some point in time, they're going to have to be held to how they perform according to the talents that they've been given. You remember the biblical parable of the talents? You know, so many, this person got so many, this one got so many more. It's not, you know, you do with the talents that you've been given. And so the set of circumstances that this Progressive Liberal Party found itself in and finds itself in, what do you do as a consequence? I think they have dithered and dealt with so many things, and they have not been able to get anything completed. The referendum is a typical example. Both referenda. The first one was an exercise not only in futility but in a waste of money, an exercise that resulted in the views and wishes of the people of the Bahamas being discarded, and without even the benefit of our Prime Minister looking the people in the eye and saying, I'm sorry, that for circumstances beyond our control, and believe me, I don't buy that argument at all, but didn't even have the honor, the integrity to look the Bahamian people in the eye as he did before, to say, I am sorry that this is what we're going to do. What he did was to have two of his ministers give half-hearted apologies. The minister with responsibility for gaming and the minister of national security attempted to apologize for what happened. Then you move to the constitutional referenda, all very important bills being put to the Bahamian people in order to eliminate constitutionally enshrined discrimination against women. You know, we happen to be one of only 25 countries in the world that still have constitutionally enshrined discrimination against women. That puts us in some very, very dubious company. Places like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and typically countries that have Sharia laws. So here the government has an opportunity now to right a wrong, to right a problem, which in part they are partially responsible for, having taken the political cheap out in 2002 in order to try and score some political mileage. And they haven't been able to right that wrong.
Let's take them in turn, Dr. Sands, the one on gaming. The Bahamian people voted no in the majority, but you had 52% of the people who didn't vote. That is the first thing. Second, you had a system in place where the government is unable to police it. the authorities are unable to police web shop gaming in the Bahamas because of how it is done in cyberspace. Third, the government needs taxes. And if you cannot control a vice, then you tax it. And so while the government recognized that you had a high percentage of people, or the majority who voted no, there were some extenuating circumstances in the country. Add to that, fourth, that the Central Bank of the Bahamas said it was difficult to even arrive at GDP because of the amount of web shop gaming going on in the country. So isn't it the responsible thing for a government to right these wrongs and to regulate that industry?
I think we can speak hypothetically about what is right and wrong. I think the focus here is that the government claimed that they acknowledged the challenge, that they felt that the way to solve this problem was through the process of a referendum. The Right Honorable Prime Minister, in a memorable, heartfelt delivery to the people of the Bahamas, said that he would be bound by the results of the referendum. He said that.
Well,
he said that.
He said that at one stage, and then the other stage he said, you know, it is a, not a plebiscite, but he said it was an opinion poll.
If you recall, it was a very divisive...
An opinion poll is
just that. It was a very divisive process. You may recall that some segments of the organized church, the opposition, other individuals pushed for the Vote No campaign.
Well, the FNM did.
Yes, the better funded part of this was the Vote Yes campaign. And it was almost an obscene campaign in the sense of houses given out, cars given out, money allegedly being given out. And I think very few people on the Vote Yes side ever imagined that the outcome would be the way that it was. Suffice it to say, we know what happened. It was a unilateral dismissal of the questions posed in that referendum, except in a few, Farm Road and Baintown. I think, and perhaps Engliston.
Centerville.
Well, yes, Centerville. So there may have been 2 and possibly 3 black belt communities that voted for regularization and taxation of the numbers industry. Everybody else, from Inagua to Grand Bahama or Abaco or Bimini, however you want to mark the northern Bahamas, said no.
But 52% of the people stayed home. In all of the constituencies, the majority of the people did not vote.
Who had carriage?
And they did not vote.
Who had carriage of the referendum?
Because the government took a nonchalant kind of attitude toward it. And it is argued that if the PLP had asked their people to come out to vote, and if the Prime Minister hadn't made that statement that he didn't have a horse in the race, that people would have voted. And it was a miscalculation on the part of the PLP because they assumed that the majority of the people would say yes.
And I think we learn what you do or what happens when you assume.
Yes.
Now, with that bad taste left in the mouths of Bahamians for referenda, you now come with 4 bills, plus a few extraneous or additional bills to go along with them, to change the constitutional provisions in terms of how you pass citizenship on to children, to a spouse, and to eliminate some of the long-held challenges in our Constitution.
Yes, but Dr. Sands, the reason why this particular bill is facing difficulty is, you would agree, that there's a high level of political illiteracy in the Bahamas. That in the main, the Bahamian people are politically illiterate. Because if you are going to argue over the word sex and what it means, that has to be political illiteracy.
I put it to you, Mr. Jones, that this problem was created in the Bahamas 12 years ago, these very issues were brought up by this government, who was then in opposition, because they saw an opportunity to take out the then government, which they successfully did. But you know, they say when you dig a grave, you must dig two. And so politically, I don't think that there's a level of political illiteracy. I think there's a level of political distrust. And one of the challenges that I think we have in the Bahamas is that the level of trust and belief in the political process has reached an all-time low, so that Bahamians in general do not trust politicians, all politicians.
Okay. There are some politicians down south in the Caribbean who say that referenda do not work in the Caribbean. And if you go throughout the Caribbean where there were referenda, all have failed.
Well, I put it to you, you know, when that presupposes that the conclusion or the outcome of the referendum is supposed to be one way or the other. A referendum is exactly that, is a question put to the people in order to find out how they feel.
Yes, but the government should not put a referendum to the people unless the government is prepared to do a certain thing.
Exactly.
Okay? And the FNM government placed a number of questions to the Bahamian people because they wanted a particular result. On gaming, the PLP wanted a particular result. On the matter of gender equality, they want a particular result. But there are all sorts of circumstances that have caused people to vote no. For instance, in the Bahamas, it seems, on this matter of gender equality, a whole lot of women in the Bahamas believe that their husbands or men should have rights that they do not have, that women do not have. And it's cultural. Some are based on religious beliefs. Some of these things are based on biblical, on the scriptures, that the man is the head of the house as Christ is the head of the church. And they believe, many women believe, and they've said to me, that they want their husbands to have a higher degree of rights, civil rights in the country. And so, again, we are talking political illiteracy, aren't we?
I put it to you, and certainly my position is that we ought to be educating our people so that they can understand the benefit that accrues to our young women as well as to our young men to be equal under the law. And while we can say that it is cultural for us to maintain what exists now, I don't believe that it ought to be maintained. I think that if we are to consider ourselves as advanced, as contemporary as other countries, that this current problem in our Constitution we need to work to eliminate. And if it means that we have to spend an additional 2, 3, 4 months in order to get bipartisan buy-in, then let's do it.
Yeah, but Dr. Sands, we have in the United Nations certain conventions, certain treaties, certain things that our government signed on to, certain conventions. And they signed on to these things assuming that a progressive people, supposedly in the Bahamas, would agree to these things.
That is correct.
And one has to do with gender equality, right? And the government of the Bahamas has had to delay whatever because they do not see our public being prepared or as educated as they should be on the particular issue. And so they've decided to delay it. Well, because it will be very embarrassing for the government if the Bahamian people were to vote no to gender equality.
It is more than just embarrassing. I think it would be a shame if we allow this process to be hijacked by misinformation and disinformation. When you listen to the noise in the marketplace, as I have done, and you listen to the conversation that this is about immigrants breeding out Bahamians, and when you listen to the comment that these bills are in order to set the stage for same-sex marriage and so on, and you ask, well, where did this information come from? You can only say that this process has been hijacked, and
by who?
By whomever, by individuals who would seek to distort the process. Now, there may be
a whole lot of people in the opposition.
There may be a number of individuals that indeed have another agenda. Okay, but certainly I can tell you that from where I stand, I have no agenda other than to seek to equalize young men and young women in their own country.
Are we a progressive people when it comes to these long-standing international issues that we ought to resolve? Do you think
I don't think, and again, we started talking about where we are right now, and I said that this is a pregnant moment. We are not terribly progressive in sorting out many of our challenges, whether we're talking about our energy agenda, whether we're talking about our approach to crime or education. I think we have maintained traditional approaches that are simply ineffective in 2014.
Okay, let's take a break here. We're on the platform, and Dr. Duane Sands is looking at a whole lot of issues here today. We'll come right back.